We're going to call the open session business meeting to order. Mr. Frazier? Oh, sorry, we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I need an approval for approval of the Board of Education agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, or Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes. Okay, next I need a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Frazier?
Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Okay, I see that we don't have any public participation. Mr. Holbrook?
Yes, President Baker. I would like to start my superintendent comments tonight by talking about the great event that we all got to attend last Saturday, which was high school graduation. We had well over 500 high school seniors walking across the stage and graduating. Also, this graduation class earned over $16 million in scholarships. And so that's a significant number. We wish them the best, and they need to know that they're always welcome back. And you know, that's one of my favorite events annually that we do, is to see kids get their high school diploma. And you know, it was a great event. I also want to thank everyone that took place in helping put on that event. You know, it takes a huge effort in order to do that and to make that commencement ceremony memorable for the graduates' families and friends. And we couldn't have done it without all the help of everybody involved. And so, you know, I just want a heartfelt thank you to everybody that was involved with that. Tomorrow marks the last day of the 2022-23 school year for our students. And we're already looking forward to the beginning of 23-24. I know they're looking forward to rest, relaxation, and a little fun over the summer, but you know, we feel like we've had an extremely successful school year, and we look forward to August 14th welcoming our kids back, you know, in the fall. Tonight's board agenda includes a recommendation for the next principal at Riverview Elementary, Anne Marie Barth, along with the recommendation from HR of employment contracts for over 600 Hamilton City School District teachers. Additional recommendations tonight are for the approval of the 23-24 district handbooks and business operation items for student transportation, food services contract renewal, school resource officers, and upgrades to classroom furniture and cafeteria furniture. One of the things that I do want to bring your attention to in tonight's recommendations is that we are recommending an honorary high school diploma to an individual that was a Vietnam vet. He was 76 years old and has passed away, and had the required 18 credits when, you know, he was a senior in high school, but some choices came in, went off, fought for our country, was a U.S., you know, Marine veteran, and his daughter reached out to us on doing this, and it's an honor to be able to do something like this. But part of the process in being able to present the honorary diploma is for the board to approve it. And so that is on the agenda for consideration this evening as well. Those are my comments, and the final thing on the agenda, and you'll hear later, is Mr. Frazier's update of the financial forecast.
Thank you, Mr. Holbrook.
Mr. Holbrook, if I may, I don't think a lot of people realize that on Saturday morning, you and other staff members were out there bright and early with leaf blowers, rags, wiping up every seat in every place in the stadium so people can sit and not have to worry about getting wet, or it just, people don't realize how early you were out there. and others with you. So I want to say thank you, because that's not something I don't think is in your job requirement. But if you want to be, I'll have these people put it in there in the future. But I do say thank you for your time on that.
I appreciate it. It wasn't just me. There was a lot of people
Right.
there. Mr. Wright, Mrs. Blevins was there. We had high school administrators there. We had maintenance custodial staff there. We had counselors out there. We had other staff members out there as well. So it wasn't just myself doing that. So it took a total team effort.
But see, my son said to me, Dad, make sure you want to take some rags. We're going to get there early so we can help out. And then you posted that. I text him back, says, it's done. But thank you, everybody.
Well, I think it's really important to make that as memorable of an event for families and students as possible. So, it's all hands on deck, and it's whatever we need to do at that moment to get the job done. And so I'm fortunate to have a lot of people that are willing to put in whatever needs to be done in order to make that, event happen. Even Mr. Frazier came out and was helping wiping down chairs and that. So, I mean, it was a total team effort.
And it was a very nice day and ceremony, very nice, so. And also a note on the letter from the daughter, that was a very heartfelt letter to ask for that honorary.
She did. I spoke to her on the phone a little bit, and it's very sincere, and we dug into what the process actually is. We haven't done an honorary diploma in a few years, and so I'm grateful we're able to do that for the family.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have 3 items on the human resource agenda. Section A, I need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, any discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Abstain.
Okay. Next, we have item B, which is Hamilton High School freshman campus assistant principal. I need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Frazier?
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Isgro?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Next is the approval of the 2023-24 district handbooks. I would need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Need a
Second.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Matthews? Any further discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Okay, we have the consent agenda in front of us. Everybody had an opportunity to read all of that, so I need a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Thank you. Need a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Any discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Frazier,
Okay.
show is yours.
Tonight, we have quite a few items on the finance agenda. We also have a few slides regarding the 5-year forecast. So I'll go over these slides here. I can answer any questions that you may have, and then we'll go through the financial items for approval today. So it is time for the May update for the forecast. So what is the forecast? We all know that it's required. The O.R.C. and the Ohio Administrative Code requires that the Board of Education submit an approved 5-year forecast, which that is something that's new, one in November, and then an update to that by the end of May. The forecast is it's a snapshot financial analysis. So it's what we know at a given time. And we'll go through those things, what we know, what we think we know, and what we know we don't know here in just a little bit. But everything that we know at a certain point in time, we bring to bear and put in our numbers moving forward. When we talk about the forecast, we're only talking about the general fund. So we have upwards of 30 funds on our books. We have the general fund, we have the permanent improvement fund, we have food service funds, we have principals funds, we have state grants and federal grants. But we're only talking about the general fund. The general fund is our largest fund, and that's where most folks' salaries and benefits come out of. We pay utilities out of there. The fuel for our buses comes out of the general fund, and also school supplies as well. And the 5-year forecast has 3 years of history and 5 years worth of projections. The first projection year being the current year we are in. So FY23 will be the first year of projections, and then it will go out to 2027. So what's the purpose of the 5-year forecast? The purpose is to engage the board and community in planning and discussions for financial issues. It also allows me to certify the 412 certificate. That's something that treasurers in the state of Ohio for school districts have to certify, basically saying that we have enough money coming in to meet our obligations throughout the years. And then what we really use it for the most is a management tool. Every decision that we make, that we throw out there, has a financial implication. We use this in executive cabinet quite often when we're running through scenarios of what we want to do in the future. So like I said, there's a lot of unknowns when we're talking about projecting 5 years out. We're a month and a half away, a little less than that, from a biennium budget. Every 2 years, the state of Ohio puts out its budget. A large portion of that is school funding, and we are extremely reliant on those dollars to run this district. And we know right now a little bit of what's going to be in that budget. There are a lot of things we don't know. And in this 5-year projection period, we've got 2 of these budgets. So it's really is an unknown variable when we're talking about projecting out 5 years. We also have a Butler County tax reval. There's been a lot of discussion about that. There's been articles in the paper. The auditor has come out and said, we think it's going to be a 24% increase in property taxes. The state tax commissioner has come back and said, no, we think it's probably going to be 42%. So again, we won't know that for sure until around October. So the November forecast will likely have a set amount in there that's pretty concrete. But for now, we are going to use, to be conservative, the 24% that the auditor has put out there. It could possibly be more, but I don't think it's going to be any less than that. And then negotiated agreements for wages. In this projected 5-year period, these negotiations, the agreements expire. So again, an unknown. We don't know what's going to happen with those. This year, we've had some significant updates since November, since the November forecast. A lot of times, the November forecast is going to be pretty darn close to where you end up if you're projecting correctly. That's not the case this year. We've had quite a bit of revenue come in that we didn't necessarily know at the time we filed the November forecast. One of these, and we've talked about, it's House Bill 45. In December, the state legislature passed House Bill 45. And what that did was that increased our DPIA dollars, our Disadvantaged Pupil Impact Aid, close to about $2 million. So that's an increased revenue item that we have now that we didn't know in the November forecast. We also received an update from the state tax commissioner from the 2020 tax assessment. The county auditor at the time increased property taxes for Hamilton residents 14% for 2020, 2021. The tax commissioner came back and said, no, that should have been 20%. So we collected quite a bit more revenue than was anticipated in the November forecast. And then wages. In FY '23, the districts realized some savings through attrition that we didn't necessarily know when we filed the November forecast. So all of those things are in our favor moving forward for this year and for the years to come. So we have unknowns. We also have to make some assumptions with these unknowns. So for revenues, we are going to assume that we're going to get the 24% in property tax. Again, it could be more, but I don't think it's going to be any less. We are assuming that there's no change in property tax allocation. And what that is as a taxpayer, you get a 10% credit on your property taxes, and the state makes the school district whole and pays that 10% to us. We're not forecasting any change in that. We are assuming that the school funding model is going to continue in this biennium budget as well as the next one, 26 and 27. And we're also going to assume that the way that that model was funded based on 2018 cost inputs is going to continue. Now, there's a caveat there. So the governor comes out with his proposed plan, and that's the FY 2018 cost inputs that goes into the base cost that is a major driver for how much money we get from the state. The House version of the bill came out, and they added $1 billion to the education bill, or to the education piece of that. And most of that was the implementation of increasing those base inputs from what it cost in 2018 to run a school to what it cost in 2022 to run a school. So a big, big difference. It's going to have if that happens, it's going to have a significant impact on the amount of money we get from the state, and it will be a favorable material impact. So we just want to put that caveat out there. Again, we don't know what's going to happen. We're assuming it's going to be the 18 because that's current law. And we don't know what's going to happen in the Senate yet. We don't know what's going to happen in budget reconciliation. But that's what we're comfortable with assuming moving forward, being conservative. And then on the expense side, we have negotiated agreements. We have them in there as they're currently defined. Again, we don't know exactly what they're going to be, but we can assume that's the assumption we're going to make, is it's going to be that moving forward. For COVID relief, we're projected to run out of COVID dollars at the end of FY '24 and have those expenses rolled back into the general fund in FY '25. We have to spend those dollars out in that time frame, so all schools are running into this. And you'll see those dollars come back in a graph that I'll show you here in a little bit. And then for healthcare, we had quite a large increase in FY '23, and we are not expected to have a similar increase to that throughout the rest of the forecast period. So where does our money come from? We have 3/4 of our general fund revenue come from the state. That's a lot. 18% comes from local taxes. And when we talk about, the state funding formula and local taxes, that's been in the news a lot lately, the current funding model, the more your tax base goes up, the less money you get from the state. So that's extremely important for us to monitor because we are so heavily reliant on the state. We get 2% from state of Ohio reimbursements, and that property tax allocation is in that number. And then we get 3% of other revenue, which is basically interest and any other miscellaneous reimbursements like Medicaid reimbursements. Where's the money go? Education, it's a service industry. And so our major expenses are going to be salary and benefits for employees, as is every school district. We have 14% of our general fund budget goes to purchase services. And again, those are things like utilities, contracts for special education programs, internet, phone access, those types of things. 3% goes to supply and materials. I know one of our largest costs is paper. Paper has just gone through the roof since I've been here. And then 1% other. So this is the cash balance graph. You can see we've got blue columns there, that represents total general fund revenue. We've got red columns that represent total general fund expenditures. And then if you can see the line through the middle, that's our general fund cash balance. And for the past several years, we've been building cash balance, and that's mostly due to those COVID dollars coming in and us being able to offset some of those general fund expenses and kind of helping to shore up the general fund. But you can see if we look at the 2025 projected, that's where the red column starts to exceed the blue column. Those are those monies coming back in and creating what we call a deficit, a spending deficit. Now, again, this assumes 2018 cost inputs and things that we are very comfortable with as far as being conservative on the revenue side. So this graph, again, in November, could look potentially very different than this. And so we know pretty close what the expenditures are going to be within a certain extent. The question is what's going to what's going to happen with those revenues? Because you can see as soon as we start getting that deficit spend, what it does to the green line, the cash balance. And then so really in summary, I mean, we've got quite a few differences from November to May. And all of those differences that I've talked about are favorable for us. The November forecast was not pretty by any means, and this is significantly better, and potentially with things coming down the pike could be even better than what we're forecasting. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Again, there's a lot of unknowns. There are things we don't know, but again, it's a snapshot analysis, and it changes. And then for November 2023, I think we're going to be more on track. It's going to be more rock solid. We'll be in a new biennium. We'll know what the funding is. We should know at that point in time what our property tax increase is. So I'm looking forward to the November 2023 and really seeing how this all kind of shakes out. For the May update, though, that's what we have so far. So with that, take any questions, and then we can move into the.
No questions, just a comment. Thank you for what you do. I mean, I know sometimes being the treasurer is a thankless job, but with all of these unknowns and all of the things that we have to juggle and not knowing this or not knowing that, I feel very comfortable that you and the administrative team have worked well together, and to know that we'll be okay. But it's been very difficult, I think, to forecast. And so I just wanted to make sure that you knew how much we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay, up for your consideration tonight, we have several items. We have the approval of the financial forecast. That actually has to be approved now by the board. Didn't used to be that way, but that's something new that's been handed down. We have the Lane Public Library tax budget. Several months ago, we passed the tax budget for the district. And because the public library is within our district, the Board of Education has to approve their tax budget so that I can send it to the Budget Commission at the county. We have an agreement for workers' compensation retrospective rating program. And what that is, we've been working with Spooner for quite some time. They're a company that allows us to get discounts on our workers' comp program. and they provide a significant service to us. And so this is the contract for them. We have this every year. We have a few confirming purchase orders for Kings Island and 2 for Strategic Management Solutions. And then we have several donations on the agenda tonight, totaling $5,675, and then the normal treasurer reports, which include the cash flow analysis and the cash position report. And those are my items.
Frazier, I need a motion to accept the treasurer.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Isgro,
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That concludes our meeting tonight. Our next meeting will be Thursday, June 8th, 2023, beginning at 9 a.m. here at the district office. With that being said, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you, Dave. All those, this meeting is adjourned.